To get started, guys, the goal of today's session is to pretty much show you guys the revamped version of cost and compensation, how it works, how to set it up, and then a real life application with a training job that I have set up for the end of the call. Now, the main idea or the main message that I want to get across here is that this session is about, or this new revamp that we have is about more control over your costs and comps, more flexibility and more accuracy when it comes out to pricing out these jobs. It's not just a new UI change that we've implemented. So, like I mentioned, this is a revamp of an existing module. It is not a brand new feature. Cost and Comp has existed in the system for quite some time now, but it was a little bit neglected. But we've given it some TLC at this point, revamped it, and added some new features and functionality to it as well. Settings are now going to be a little bit more powerful and structured for the needs that you guys have, and it's going to help support more realistic compensation setups for sales, movers, and non-people related costs. With that being said, guys, we're going to focus your attention on my screen. I'm going to show you guys how to actually get to the cost and comp section, which is pretty simple. We're going to start off by going into settings. Then over here, we're going to go to this accounting tab, and we're going to see cost and compensation. So right off the bat, guys, you can see that this menu looks completely different. And the first thing that we're seeing is billing libraries. So cost and compensation now, guys, is tailored to every single one of your billing libraries in the system at the moment. Right now, we only have one because this is just my test account, but obviously you guys may have multiple billing libraries across your account. And it's expected that you're now able to set up the cost and comp for each one of those individually. To get started, guys, once we're on the screen, ideally what we're going to click on is view. So that way we're now able to see the actual cost and comp section. So like I mentioned, cost and comp is directly tied to the billing library. What does this mean? This means that all the items, meaning fees, supplies, any type of discounts that you have within said billing library are now going to show up here. And you can now assign values to them depending on if it's a general cost or a compensation percentage or item to one of the people that is on your team or your crew. A couple of visual changes that we see here. We now see that everything is more in a list format and can now be edited in bulk. We don't have to do so much clicking now to get to certain sections or to certain items that we want to edit. And we also have two tabs that we can work from. We have the bill items, which like the name says, are tied to the bill items in your actual billing library. And then we have other, which I'm not going to talk about right now, but I will dig into later and explain furthermore. So coming back to bill items, some of the changes that we see here, we can now search based off of this little search bar that we have here. We've also added filters that we can go ahead and use in case you have a very extensive bill library. Right now, this one's fairly small, but obviously I've seen customers and customer setups, and some of them can get quite intricate. So we've added these filters for easy access and easy viewing. We also have this option to sort, so that way you can sort, A to Z, Z to A, however you like. We have this expand feature, which is going to expand the options within these different line items as well. And then lastly, we have the edit button, which is pretty much what we want to be using at this moment. So I clicked into edit and you can see that all these fields are now fields that I can update and input different types of quantities or options into. And to get started, I actually already filled out a couple of these before the session started, just to better explain how to use them and what's the intention behind them. So to start off with, guys, when we're looking at a bill item, we can see that that bill item can be affected across different parts of the actual project itself. It can be characterized as a general cost. It can be characterized as a compensation item for a salesperson, a driver, a helper, a supervisor, or any other type of roles that you have within your company, right? So these are the ones that I have set up on my demo account. On your guys' end, you guys can have, a number of things. You guys can have drivers, helpers, supervisors, packers, unpackers, things like this. And each one of those is going to have their own column to set up their individual compensation. Within the actual compensation items, guys, we are going to have a very unique feature, which is this one right here, which is pretty much how we want that compensation item or that cost item to react to the bill item that we see on the bill itself. So the first one that we see is rate per quantity. A really great example to use here, guys, is for supplies or handling fees. So for example, I have this one right here and this one right here as well set up, which is a baby grand piano handling fee. They're both set up as rate per quantity, meaning that the person or the mover that's going to be getting compensation on this will get $25 out of the total fee per item that's being moved. So, a better example, let's say you're moving a customer and they have two baby grand pianos. In my case, that would be a total of $500. In the helper's case, their compensation would be $25 per baby grand piano that they're moving. So in total, they would actually be getting $50 with the setup that we see here. We have another option to offer, which is a flat rate or a flat dollar amount, which is this option right here. And I have this one set up over here as well. Oh, actually, I think I don't. So we can use the long distance flat rate as an example for this one. So we're going to add the flat rate item like such. And here we're going to add a strict dollar amount. So let's say it's going to be $200 for the driver. What does this mean? This means that whatever the LD flat rate that I input on a project, let's say it's maybe $3,000, because again, it's a long distance move. They're maybe moving across multiple states. The driver in this case is going to get $200 flat off of that rate that we see in the bill. We can also apply this obviously to any of the additional movers that are going to be there, but I've typically seen this apply more to the drivers themselves since they're the ones kind of taking the bulk of the job doing the transportation. And then lastly, we have the percentage item right here that we can use. And this is just to apply a specific percentage to whatever the total of that rate or fee is going to be. This is typically used on fee line items like a transportation fee or an hourly rate fee, where by role or position, we're able to add a percentage that that person is going to be receiving, depending on whatever the total of that rate is on the actual project itself. So in the case of my hourly rate, I set it up to where the driver gets 15%, a helper or a mover would get 10%, and then a supervisor would get a total of 20%. This is purely compensation, meaning this is what the movers would receive. I also added a general cost because this is pretty much what it would cost me as a company to provide the compensation and to actually provide this hourly rate. So it'd be a total of 35%. Well, if I did the math a little better, it'd actually be 45% right here based off of what we see here. Obviously, these are just random values that I'm applying to these different costs and compensation items. You guys are obviously going to have a much more intricate setup because you're going to have your accounting formulas and just the way of running your own business internally. So again, this is just an example for me to show you how this works. This is not something that obviously we recommend you guys to use because these are just completely random values that I'm applying here on my end. Some other features that we've added here, guys, which I find to be really cool compared to our past cost and compensation module, is this auto apply function. So this auto apply function, guys, this is intended to help you guys be more consistent and accurate when it comes to, doing cost and compensation. If we have the auto apply function toggled on like it is right now, this means that once the job is completed, if any of the cost items or compensation items that we see here are on the bill, they will pretty much autofill with whatever values we have set up in each one of these sections. That way, you don't really have to have somebody go in, review, apply, make sure it's correct. No, because if you have your correct values and the numbers here in order, it will just apply automatically, and cost and comp is pretty much taken care of. Just because this is turned on doesn't mean you're blocked out. So there could be, one-off cases where you need to go to a project and maybe make some edits. That's going to be completely possible. You're still going to be able to override the values on that project, and whatever values you add will not override or update the values we see here in the settings. It would pretty much just apply to that project specifically. I'll show you guys and get into that a little bit later once we're on the real life example as well. Also, you can turn this setting off in case you don't want cost and comp to manually apply. You guys, in the case, maybe a little bit more stricter when it comes to accounting and prefer some type of manual intervention when it comes to cost of compensation. So you prefer to have one of your accounting people actually go into each project, review the bill, then review the cost items, review percentages, make sure everybody's getting a fair share, make sure, the numbers are in the correct place. So that way your numbers are reflected accurately when it comes to reporting as well. For now, we're going to leave these turned on like such. Another important thing here, guys, to understand is that if it's not a bill item, meaning that if it's not created here or not on the bill itself, it's not going to magically create a cost or a compensation once we get to an actual project. So we need to make sure that all of the bill items that we have in the system are filled out accurately. So that way, when we are looking at cost and comp in a project, the numbers do add up, and essentially everything that needs to, in this case, autofill or auto apply is going to do as expected. Now, with that being said, we have this other option because there's going to be cases where we're going to have, let's say, other compensation or cost, I'm sorry, other cost items specifically. This is mainly used for cost that are not going to be necessarily on the bill. One example that I have here is a mileage fee, right? So let's say you guys are going to be calculating possibly gas per mile. This is where we would actually create that cost item and be able to apply it to our real life projects. So if we look at this one, I'm going to go ahead and click edit so we can see how it's set up. So the way that this is set up is that it's using the mileage, the portal to portal mileage variable found on all of your projects. And it's pretty much using that to apply a general cost of 25% to the bill itself. So whatever the mileage is, the system is doing the math based off of this percentage, and it's going to give you the actual cost in terms of what gas would maybe be priced out at. We obviously have different options here. We have the set dollar amount as well that we can use. An improvement that we are going to be adding in the future is the rate. I'm sorry, the rate per quantity option, which we saw earlier, which for this example might make a little bit more sense. But as we can see here, we don't have that available yet. So the next best thing would be to use the actual percentage itself. And taking a step back, guys, I want to show you how I actually added this. So we have this add button in the top right corner. We're going to go ahead and click on this. This is fairly similar to what we saw previously when it came to cost and compensation, where we could give it a name, choose a type, and then choose additional options based off of the type itself. So here we're going to do mileage fee one more time. Again, this one is going to be per variable because we're going to be using the portal to portal mileage variable that's shown in the system. And then since I use per variable, obviously now I can choose from the different options or different variables you guys have available within the account. So in this case, project portal to portal and the format percentage. Once again, we are going to be doing an improvement down the line where we're going to be adding the rate per quantity format here as well. So for cost items like this one, it makes a little bit more sense to use that one. But for now, we ask that you guys use percentage because it would be essentially the next best thing that we can use at the moment. And then we once again have the auto apply option that we can go ahead and set up as well. And then once we click apply, same thing, what we just saw, we would just go ahead and click into edit. And since this is a cost, that's why general cost is the only one that's filled out, because essentially when it comes to this, it wouldn't make sense to, provide compensation for a cost that is obviously affecting the company directly in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Oh, actually, let me do something here real quick. I'm going to delete this one because I don't want to get confused once I get into my actual project. I only want to have one of these, as we can see here. All right, so just going to take a quick break, guys. Let everything sink in before I actually get into the real life project sample that I have. Also going to get my notes here in place. All right, so just a quick recap when it comes to the revamped version of cost and comp. We are now able to make these edits in bulk. We're able to choose the different formats that we want based on if it's quantity per rate, a set dollar amount, or a percentage. We can go ahead and add the cost payout and then the compensation payout for our movers as well, based on the rules that we have set up in the system. And then we also have the auto apply function, which is going to, like the name says, auto apply these settings to any project that we want. If turned on, obviously, if toggled off, then it's a manual action, meaning somebody has to go into each project and apply these items to the cost and comp section, because if not, it's going to stay blank. All right. So without any further ado, guys, I'm going to jump into the training project that I have set up here. So a couple of key things to note. I have two jobs, right? This is with the intention to show you how cost and comp works across projects with multiple jobs. And another important thing is I have my dispatch ready. This is also very important when it comes to cost and comp, because this is how we know who is on the job and who is going to show up on the cost and comp section itself. So I have my helper and my driver. That being said, we're going to go to this first one and we're going to go to the bill first, which is right here. So that way we can kind of see what I added to this bill. So that way, once we get to cost and comp, we maybe understand a little bit more how it's pricing things out. So on the bill for the move on the 17th, we have an hourly rate, we have a transportation fee, we have a container fee, we have a parking ticket, and we have a handling fee for a baby grand piano and an upright handling fee. Handling fee for an upright piano as well. We can see we have a total of $2,260 with 60 cents. And if we scroll down, we have the bill for the second job for the 18th, kept a little bit more basic with just the hourly rate and the transportation fee, which again, guys, on my account, these are formula based, meaning that it's doing its magic on the back end, looking at mileage, stuff like that to spit out these numbers and these fees we see for the hourly rates. Now, once we're ready to move into cost and compensation, we're going to click on the accounting tab we see on the project. We're going to go to cost and compensation, and we can see that there's already items filled out. Why? Because I have the auto apply function enabled. So that's why this is already showing me different costs, revenue, compensation totals, cost totals, all this great information. However, there may be things I want to edit or dig into a little bit deeper. To do so, we're going to click where it says edit in the top right, and it's going to show us a similar view to what we were seeing previously in the settings. But obviously, this is now on the job level itself. So we have moving services for 1217, which is job number 1. And then we have moving services for 1218, which is job number 2. So this is essentially how it's going to show when you're facing multiple jobs on a project. It's just going to essentially list them out. And like I mentioned previously, guys, once again, I do have the auto apply function. So that's why these sections right here are auto filled out. But this doesn't mean I'm locked out and I can't override these options. If maybe for this job, I maybe want to give one of my movers a little bit more and just bump it up to 20%, I can go ahead and do so. Make sure, obviously, I click save at the end. And once I save this, it's not going to affect the settings that we saw previously, which for a visual are these. Essentially, it's just going to override the settings for this specific job and project. All right, so a couple of things that we are going to see here, guys. We're going to see the different line items. We're going to see the quantity per line item, the revenue percentage and dollar amounts, and then the total costs based off of, obviously, the information that we're seeing on the right-hand side and filled out on this end here. Now, it's important to note, yes, there are going to be sections that are not going to be filled out for certain columns, and that's expected because, let's say a container fee. That's something that a salesperson is going to maybe be selling to the customer because maybe they need a container for the move itself. It wouldn't make sense to provide compensation for the movers because obviously they weren't part of that sales process. That's why here we see a 5% being given to the salesperson itself. Now, a really interesting one that I wanted to show you guys was this one for the parking tickets. So this is also considered a cost to the company because obviously it's a parking ticket that one of the trucks received while they were on the move itself. So we see that no compensation is offered to any of the people on the move or on the project itself. It's 100% of a cost that the company is assuming right here, but that the customer is going to be paying out. So the ticket is, let's say, $300 that was added to the bill. The customer pays those $300 and then the company takes 100% of those profits and obviously uses it to pay the ticket off. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're going to see this information pretty much react the same across all jobs. And then, oh, here we have the one for additional costs. This is the one that I created when we were in the other tab right here, which was the mileage fee. So here we can see that this actually applies at the project level. So it's taking the mileage at the project level that we have. It's calculating the total cost based on the amount of miles and the general cost percentage that I added. And that's how it spits out this information practically. A couple of more options that we have here, guys. We can add an additional cost here if we like. This would be essentially how it applies when we're looking at the other bill, right? Uh, this is not intended for bill items, meaning that, there is maybe a bill item that's missing a cost. If it's not showing up here, guys, that means it's not on the bill. So if there's a fee, a rate, a discount, a supply that is not showing up here, it first has to be added to the bill so that way it shows up. The additional cost, this is for non-people costs, guys. This is again for like mileage fees, gas fees, essentially anything else that would not technically appear on a bill. So it's very important to point that out. And with that being said, guys, that is just a quick overview of the revamped version we have for cost and compensation.